Welcome to the Conversations Across the Grand Canyon podcast, aka The Big Gap. Here, our purpose will be to explore the impacts of social, political, and economic issues through the lens of generational and cultural differences. Good day. I'm Big Al Perry, the Sonic Boomer.
Okay, Boomer. Okay.
Welcome to the Big Gap podcast. The Big Gap podcast, Welcome to those willing to listen to an opinionated but fair-minded 70-plus-year-old man that offers his take on select issues of the day, particularly, when I can, those that have some significant impact on the Middle Georgia area. Purposely, subject matter for this episode will be varied. A hodgepodge of topics that captured my attention during the past week. Let me apologize in advance for the what will probably be some abrupt, quick transitions as I work my way through the subjects I'm going to be talking about. And like I said, apologize if it may become a little bit confusing. So, I guess the first thing I would like to touch on is the celebrations going on in Washington, D.C., indeed, around the country. But particularly in Washington, D.C., the Great American National Fair is going on up on the Mall in Washington, D.C. And I just happened to catch, it was one of the Fox network channels. It could have been the Fox News channel, but it was a Fox network channel. And they were doing some live coverage, and that was Monday, I think June 29th it was. But anyway, they were doing live coverage, and they were, talking about some of the events and some of the news that was going on during the event, and some social interest stories surrounding the event. And I was just channel surfing, and I saw it. I stayed on it for a minute, and it could be because it was a Monday that it didn't seem particularly well attended. Not only that, the heat could have had something to do with it. I think either before I was actually watching, I think some bad weather and rain and whatnot, happened. Not sure if that's truly the case, but anyway, it didn't seem very well attended, and so, that kind of struck me a little bit. And I was a little bit surprised and dismayed by it. Later on, I did find out that as part of this expo, let's call it, all of the 50 states and, the U.S. territories were provided space to set up a booth that was supposed to be populated by, each state and territory's a delegation to, promote not only, the state or territory, but it also provide opportunity for each delegation to perhaps highlight some particular event or how they may have contributed to the signing or the eventual signing of the Declaration of Independence, some little tidbit of history, maybe some little, the delegations will be dressed up in period costumes or have some kind of video display of what was going on back in those colonial times when, all of the events that led up to our declaration and the signing of the declaration. And I was taken aback by the fact that I think they said there was like 10, maybe a dozen states and territories refused to send a delegation. I saw pictures of empty booths. And, like I said, I just didn't like the visual of that. And I know some of the delegations, they said that it was cost prohibitive for them to send a delegation. I don't know if I completely believe that. I know some of the states that I can think of: Massachusetts, Washington State, Oregon, perhaps Maryland, and, a couple of the territories. They have drawn the ire of President Trump, and perhaps they didn't like the results and the aftermath of the past presidential election. All I got to say about that is, we're celebrating 250 years of independence. Just so happens that President Trump is the president during this occasion. But it shouldn't be about him. Like I said, this is a momentous anniversary. And petty differences should be set aside for this. So that just, a little bit of poor taste on my part. On their part, the delegations that didn't decided not to send a delegation to the event. I guess I will leave it at that. Just a sorry state of affairs. Another thing that kind of caught my eye as I was looking at that broadcast, the delegations, one of their excuses, like I said, was that it was cost prohibitive. It was, the administration was requiring they pay, I don't know what the amount was, but they deemed it to be exorbitant. and maybe there's some credence to that, because they were talking about how for the attendees having to pay $25 for a pretzel, $23 for a turkey leg, and $9 for a, but basically it's like a medium lemonade. I'm like, I couldn't believe it. And how is it that a pretzel costs more than a turkey leg? I mean, are they replaced the salt on the pretzel with some kind of flaked edible gold or something? I mean, I'm not getting it. Maybe somebody else knows what the ingredients in a pretzel are, but yeah, I guess it's neither here nor there, but I was just dumbfounded by the cost. Moving on, I guess the other big news that caught my eye was the fact that the Supreme Court, in a majority opinion, upheld birthright citizenship. The majority, which included the Chief Justice, said that the 14th Amendment clearly states that a child born while living in or inside the United States of America is conferred full citizenship of these United States. Those justices that were in dissent, they were focusing on the key phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, as to why they dissented. They are saying that an immigrant who's here illegally or temporarily is not subject to the jurisdiction thereof of the state or wherever they're residing. Okay. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof doesn't have anything to do with the child, in my opinion. Even the parents, even though they are here perhaps illegally or temporarily, they are still subject to the laws of the country. In other words, if they commit a crime, they're going to be caught and tried. So they are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Some of these immigrants, they may have crossed the border illegally and they've been clandestinely living in the United States, doing odd jobs, manual labor, working in agriculture field or whatever. And they've been doing that for years. So they are domiciled in the United States. And if they happen to get caught drunk driving, sure, it's going to come out that, yes, they are here illegally. But if they get caught drunk driving or doing some other crime or anything, and they're caught by law enforcement, they are subject to the laws. And they're going to go to court and they're going to go to trial. So they are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Now, like I said, all this doesn't have anything to do with the child. From the moment he's born, he's subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. I know that may be a little bit of a, just semantics, but a lot of Supreme Court decisions come down to just that, the particular use of a certain word. And, the conservative side of the Supreme Court, they use that all the time. They're textualists, originalists. They adhere to the exact wording of the laws and statutes and amendments and all of that. So, I was not surprised by the ruling. To me, it was pretty clear cut and correct. It was a correct ruling. Now, in light of that decision, the only thing conservatives can do is perhaps offer an amendment to change the wording of the 14th Amendment so that people who are here illegally or temporarily cannot be, their children, neither them nor their children can be conferred citizenship. And a little history on the process of amending the Constitution. It's basically two stages. Number one is the proposal, and number two is the ratification. And each one of those has two parts to it. For the proposal part, you got one of two methods. You got a congressional vote in which a two-thirds supermajority in the House and the Senate have to approve the proposal. That has been the method used in all 27 of the existing amendments to our Constitution. The second way to offer a proposal is by a constitutional convention. This is convened by Congress when requested by the legislators, state legislators, of two-thirds, and that's 34 states, two-thirds of the states. And that method has never been used for an amendment to the Constitution. 34 states. I think in the current state of, the legislatures, I don't know if the Republicans have got control of 34 state legislature, but they might be pretty close. And if they were to offer, a proposal, I give them a fighting chance to succeed in proposing under that method. Now, I don't know whether amending the Constitution is hard. Rightfully so. But I'm thinking if you really put forth a good effort, a sustained commitment, and organization and debate, I give you a fight. I give the Republicans a fight a chance. I give the conservative movement in this country a fighting chance to offer being successful to propose it. Now, of course, like I said, there's two parts, proposal and ratification. Ratification is going to be a little bit harder. And again, there's two methods. Once you succeed with the proposal, you've either got to, number one, you got to be approved by the state legislators. But this time, you've got to, it takes 3/4 of the legislators to ratify. That's 38 states. Or you can do it by a state convention. State conventions in which sort of like the electoral college, I guess. People are elected, convened, or chosen from, I don't know whether local political bodies are chosen to be delegates to the convention, and then they in turn uh, vote. And there again, 3/4 of those conventions have to ratify. Again, 38. And that's only been used, or it has been used, for the 21st Amendment. And that was the repeal of the 18th, which was prohibition on alcohol. So, this birthright citizenship, I don't think we've quite heard the end of it. There was some interesting, what was it? Gorsuch, the Justice Gorsuch. He didn't root. He wrote a concurring opinion that says he would have ruled for birthright citizenship, but not on the basis of the 14th Amendment. It would have been on the basis of federal statute. Says that birthright citizenship is allowed. So we'll hear more about that, I guess, in the coming year or two, certainly for the remainder of Trump's term. And so we'll see what comes of that. Let me see what else I wanted to talk about. Oh, I saw a story about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the former representative in the state of Georgia to the House. She retired. And Tucker Carlson, the media personality, who kind of fell out of favor with his Fox News program, and he was sort of kicked to the curb. Both of these were famous for their conservative activism and strong support, at least at one time, for President Trump. And they both made statements, and I'm not sure if it was a joint statement or not, but they both made statements in which they said, quote unquote, they are done with the Republican Party. My reaction was, you say effing what? Look, these were two of the biggest blowhards I have ever seen. They were MAGA to the core. And I guess somehow or another, I really never saw Tucker Carlson's program. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she was, in many news cycles, but I didn't expect anything. My expectations of her were very low, to say the least. So some of her comments she made on legislation or proposed legislation or society in general was nonsensical to me in a lot of respects. So I didn't really put much credence in anything she said. She seemed a little bit of a dim bulb to me, not very articulate, certainly not intellectual in any sense that I would ascribe to. So, but still, I didn't foresee what they. I didn't foresee anything that would make them turn their back on President Trump, let alone the Republican Party in general. Like I said, I'm not sure if this was a joint statement or not, but it made me think, made me curious. It made me think. And I wonder if it was a joint statement. Is what they're doing a precursor for a run for president in 28? Tucker Carlson, I'm talking about. We've already seen a celebrity ascend to the highest office in the land. He certainly was that. I don't know how much of that he still is, but he's seen it happen once. Could he get in the bully pulpit and expound his views and maybe capture the minds of the MAGA crowd like Trump did? That's not beyond the pale. With Marjorie Taylor Greene as his vice president, on the ticket. That's curious. Just putting that out there for what it's worth. Have no idea. Just crossed my mind because the statement in and of itself was just unexpected and almost outlandish. Another topic that kind of caught my eye this week is here we are in another summer, shaping up to be another blistering hot summer. And wildfires are raging again. When I saw the wildfire footage on TV, almost immediately, the first thing I thought of was California. But, and I think they do have some, a couple of that they haven't allowed to get out of hand. But the one that's currently raging is in Utah. It, as of maybe yesterday or a couple of days ago, one of their major fires going on in Utah is 0% contained. We're barely a month into summer. And already 3 million acres have been scorched by wildfires. 3 million acres. That exceeds the 10-year average. Barely a month into summer. And out of that 3 million acre total, 3+ million acre total, of course, Georgia is part of that total from the wildfires we had earlier this year. I mean, I'm just a little bit discouraged by the fact that uh, I'm not sure why, but the environment gets such short shrift in these conservative and Republican administrations. It seems like denying science is become almost, well, I don't think it seems, it is commonplace in a lot of Republican administrations at the federal and state level, even the local level to some extent. At some point, we've got to get back to recognizing that science is there for a purpose. It's data driven, it's fact driven. A lot of it, most of it, nearly all of it is peer reviewed. And why we can't come to grips with the fact that the planet is getting warmer. At some point, it may very well reach a tipping point where we can't come back from it. When is that? I don't know. 10 years? 50? 100? I don't know. But if we don't start acting like it's a serious concern, we are definitely going to have to deal with it. And I'd rather have contingency plans at the very least. Contingency. Can't get that word out. Contingency plans in place to mitigate some of these effects. At this point, uh, like I said, more than 3 million acres already. If you just project that forward, these hot, dry conditions, any spark, whether it be a lightning strike, a discarded cigarette, a campfire not properly extinguished, somebody making a repair with a mobile welder machine. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that may have what caused the fire here in Georgia, or what started it. So, projecting forward, we may get to, let's say, approaching 10 million acres are going to be scorched before the end of the year. I hope not, but I'm not hopeful that that won't be the case. So, with all that being said, I just wanted to uh, wish everyone a happy 4th of July. Celebrate safely. And I want to thank everyone who I don't have a huge following, to say the least. I don't even advertise on any social media. I just got on one social media site, Facebook, just a few months ago. And I don't advertise my podcast. I do it as a hobby. I do it because of my natural curiosity about current events and my observational nature. Always been this way since I was a kid. So have a happy fourth. I hope that it will be truly celebratory in nature. I was a little bit dismayed last year during the Army's, the United States Army's 250th anniversary. I was not happy at all with how that went down. Just to make it my comment short, I was not happy about President Trump seemed to be more concerned during that day with self-promotion. And Defense Secretary of quote unquote war, Pete Hegseth, he was just saber rattling. And he just put a damper on the whole occasion to me. I was proud to serve my country. I enlisted and, I didn't stay in for 20 years. I didn't retire from military service, but I was a youngster right out of high school, and I felt compelled to serve. I also had a, sort of a economic motive to serve. But I felt a duty to serve my country. I volunteered. And even though I got out, I was discharged after 3 years, honorably discharged after 3 years of service. I look back on those days as forming a lot of my character. So, yeah. All right, then. Well, we'll see you after the holidays are completed. And one thing we're probably going to be talking about, and I hope to have some guests on the podcast with me, is that after the 4th, within a week or so, the state campaigns are going to kick in for the U.S. Senate, for the governor, lieutenant governor, and all the rest. So until then, this is Big Al Perry signing off. And like I said, celebrate with a focus on safety. Don't want to hear about no, big stash of fireworks blowing up and kids getting their eyes put out or whatever. But yeah, be safe and everybody have a good time. Thank you for listening. I'm out.